WIMBIZ annual lecture series. It's fabulous to see you all, and on behalf of WIMBIZ, I say thank you for coming. We're going to get started right away with the national anthem, after which there's going to be a 5-minute presentation that we'd like you to sit back, watch, and be inspired. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let's rise for the national anthem. Welcome, Mr. Governor. Okay, now it's my honor to introduce the chairperson of WIMBIZ. Mrs. Adeola Aziz is the Deputy Country Representative and the Deputy Managing Director of Deutsche Bank Nigeria. She's the 5th chairperson of WIMBIZ, following in the amazing footsteps of Omobola Johnson, Ibukun Awoshika, Bola Adeshola, Yewande Zacchaeus, and she serves on the Executive Council and the Board of Trustees. A tireless networker and a firm believer in building bridges, Mrs. Aziz has strengthened WIMBIZ's connection to both the private and the public sector. She's encouraged established members of WIMBIZ to be mentors to up-and-coming women who are either just getting started in their careers or who need guidance on how best to run or how better to run their enterprises. One of her goals as chairperson of WIMBIZ is to expand the reach of WIMBIZ and to expand the mentorship program into the northern part of this country. A strong, decisive personality with incredible time management skills, Mrs. Aziz is a happily married mother of 3 and a role model to women who want to learn how to balance career, community, and home responsibilities and still have enough time to look fabulous. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mrs. Adeola Aziz.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. On behalf of the entire WIMBIZ team, it gives me great pleasure to welcome you all to our 2013 annual lecture. Thanking you all for making the time to join us today. It is always a great motivation for our organization to see and feel the overwhelming support for our vision, that is, making WIMBIZ the catalyst that elevates the status and influence of women and their contribution to nation building. I know we're all eager to get the proceedings started, but before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of an unstoppable hurricane, a true comrade, His Excellency, Governor Adams Aliu Oshiomhole of Edo State and his team. Thank you for that warm welcome. From the moment we first made contact with his office to invite him to be part of this event, I would like to thank them and his team for the very sheer professionalism that they gave to us during the exchanges. Your Excellency, thank you especially for honoring our invitation. It is a privilege and honor to have you in our midst this morning. Thank you so much. I also like to acknowledge the presence of the representative of the Lagos State Governor. She's here with us this morning, Mrs. Risikatu Akiode. Can you please stand up? She's the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry for Women Affairs. Thank you very much, Madam, for coming. Now, tomorrow is International Women's Day, a celebration not only showing respect, appreciation, love towards women, but one that also celebrates our economic, political, and social development and achievement. So how apt that our theme for this year's lecture is leadership, women making a difference. As always, when it comes to pushing women to the forefront, I am very excited because I know we will all be coming away today better for having been inspired by the knowledge we will share today and experiences that His Excellency will impart. In the 11+ years that WIMBIZ has been in existence, we have seen a lot of positive changes in the way women are represented in our society. Today, there are more women doing more. More in the corporate arena, more in the boardroom, more as entrepreneurs, and more in the public office. Yet, while we applaud our drive, we must look beyond sheer numbers and focus on how all this change translates towards making a lasting impact for the vision of equal accessibility to all women. Be it 1 or a million women, to succeed in achieving their aspirations as scholars, entrepreneurs, decision makers within corporate or government, it ultimately counts for nothing if we do not use our positions as leadership to impact society and promote gender-specific issues, paving the way for a new generation of women. The huge focus for WIMBIS as an organization is providing women with the tools to acquire these leadership positions and training them to utilize the opportunity, not just for their own career enhancement, but for the good of our society. As such, we welcome opportunities like these to interact with individuals capable of challenging and sharpening our skills. Today in this room, we are all leaders. Can you do me a favor? Turn to the person on your right and tell them you are a leader. Don't stop there. Turn to your left, in front of you, behind you, and tell them you are all leaders. No matter what we do or where we currently are in our professional or personal lives, we are all leaders in our own way. And as leaders, we must not shy away from the responsibility of pushing our cause. As leaders, we must help create the framework that ensures that we never, ever leave another woman, another sister behind. Women putting themselves in leadership and decision-making positions, irrespective of their chosen career path, is the way forward. Investing in ourselves, in developing our confidence and our skills to ensure we are capable of wielding these leadership roles will be a great multiplier to the progress of our future. Of course, we still have some distance to go in making our WIMBIS vision a factual reality, but I do believe the gap is narrowing. It is up to all of us in this room here today, with a renewed determination to make our voices count towards advocating change for all women in all aspects of our society. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to bring women back into focus. Thank you for allowing me to take up your time this morning. I am very eager to usher our guest speaker to the podium. His Excellency, Comrade Adam Ali Oshiomhole, is a man who knows a lot about making leadership count. Inspired into his first surgeon as a chain maker in 1969, when he played an active role in the Arewa Textile Union, his name has now become synonymous with advocacy, inspiring change, and speaking for those who do not have a voice. In 1982, His Excellency was appointed by the National Union of Textile Garment and Tailoring Workers of Nigeria as their General Secretary. In 1999, he became the 4th President of the Nigerian Labour Congress, leading the Nigerian people to resist arbitrary increases in the prices of petroleum products. In 2006, the Ambrose Ali University, ECOMA, awarded him an honorary Doctorate of Law degree. Internationally, he represented the African workers for 2 terms on the governing body of the International Labour Organization. He served on the powerful Committee on Freedom of Association of the ILO. He has also been the executive board of the International Confederation of Free Trade Unions. He is a Ruskin College, Oxford Scholar, and also an alumnus of the prestigious National Institute of Policy and Strategic Studies in Kuru. Elected governor of Edo State in April 2007 on the platform of Action Congress Party, he was unfairly denied victory, but in the outcry for justice, His Excellency was rewarded first by the Edo State Election Petition Tribunal. He was reaffirmed and restored on November 11, 2008 by the Court of Appeal. On November 12, 2008, he was formally sworn in as the governor of Edo State. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a great honor for Wimbys to be associated to such an extraordinary man. Please, can we all rise as we welcome our guest speaker, His Excellency, Governor Adams Oshiomhole of Edo State, to the podium.
Please have your seat. The chairperson of Wimbys, the members of the executive, distinguished ladies, and I think today marginalized gentlemen. I am thoroughly intimidated this morning. And the chair has compounded my problem by the kind of expectations he has raised. And when he said I was unstoppable hurricane, and I was like, if I was one, how come I'd be oppressed by very old men and women? But let me thank you, Chair and organizers of this year's edition of Wimbys annual lecture series. I was informed of your decision to invite me by my own sister, and I'll call her comrade, Ifeko Karo. And you know, she is a man by any definition. And she is one person I cannot say no to. And so I said yes, before I ask, what am I supposed to talk about? That tells you how frightened I was that I couldn't possibly say no. So I said yes, because I have no choice. And then, having accepted, she told me I am to give a talk on women leadership in business, making a difference. Now, then I realized I have a problem. First is, you know, all my life I have always been overworked and underpaid. As a worker, I was underpaid, which was why I collaborated with other workers to demand higher wages and organize strikes when I think that my employers were not listening. And as president of the NLC, I had to work for everybody, but only few people were ready to contribute to ensure that I am paid at the end of the month. And now, as a governor, my pay is fixed by those who are not my employers. The pay is fixed by Abuja, so-called the Revenue Mobilization Fiscal Commission, yet they have no hand in my employment because they are not registered voters in Edo State. So when I complain to Edo people, they tell me they are not responsible for how much I'm paid. And those who are responsible, they are not resident in the state. I accepted to come not because I really think at the end of my statement this morning that you will be better informed. First, I felt, as I said, I can't say no, but also I always think it's an opportunity to meet with people. Because for me, the most important asset of a nation is its people. And the more you meet with people, you interact, you socialize, you know more people. People like us who are always in trouble. You never know who you need to run to when next I am in trouble. And that is why I don't run away from any opportunities such as this. I start by asking the question, why do we really need to discuss the topic? Leadership, women making the difference. I guess this is because somehow around the world, I think we all have agreed as human beings that the world cannot, we can't attain the level of development that we desire, nor can we successfully pursue policies that will consign poverty to history or create that level of prosperity that is possible for us to create a world in which everybody has a basis for living if we do not ensure that men and women have equal opportunities. Secondly, when I was a steward in the labor movement, the trade unions have always been consigned over time that we need to pay special attention to women issues. And that is why you will find that in every trade union, more so in Europe, but increasingly so even in Africa and in Nigeria, we have women desk that is charged with the responsibility of ensuring that first we look at all the laws, labor laws, and ensure that they are women-friendly. We put in place specific training manuals that will enable us raise issues that are women-specific so that we can mobilize the appropriate argument to harass and, if necessary, to intimidate those in power, to reorder the environment, political, legal, and otherwise, so that women can have the same kind of opportunities that men have. And so I have been involved in this gender politics while I was in the NLC. And of course, that gave me some insight into the extent to which women are marginalized in many countries, even in Europe and America. I think in the case of Nigeria, our situation is far more compelling because looking at where we're coming from, the traditional role assigned to the woman is basically in the kitchen. Happy to make babies, use the kitchen to cook for the babies, provide for the family, manage the home. And in a typical Nigeria family setting, in a typical rural area, if parents have to choose who to support among the children to go to school, since they often can't afford to send all of them, it was natural to think that it is better for the family to encourage the male child to go to school, because after all, the girl child is going to end up, he will marry, she will leave the house, and she will go and begin to manage another family. And so in terms of the politics of family security in a peasant setting, obviously it is better to borrow or plead with uncles to raise funds to support the child, the male child, and the girl child can wait. And so over time, it was clear that women, relative to men, were lagging behind. But let me say, in the trade union, we used to argue that even at that level, if we put value on what women do at home, if we calculate carefully, if we get well-skilled job evaluators, or what do we used to call them now when I was in the union? I lost a lot of my labor literature. you will find that if you put value on the work that women do at home, and you put value on raising the child and all of that, put some value on baby feeding the child, and try and assess the quantity and the quality of that milk relative to the cost of the SMA that we buy in the shop. If we can cost all of that in a very objective manner, you will find that the correct conclusion that can be reached is that women do so much work for which they are not remunerated. In other words, it is just unremunerated labor. It is not that that labor is of less value. In fact, it is far more important than any other one. Particularly when you recognize that, in development literature, it is also clear that what drives changes, what account for countries that have made it and those who haven't made it, is the quality of their human capital. And the foundation of that is the way in which a child is brought up and managed by the mother in the first instance. But unfortunately, this is not something that is paid for. Women are not used to organizing and demanding remuneration from their husbands. And so they accept this as a natural contribution for which they are not protesting. And we pray that they never have to protest over it. Because the day they do, there will be trouble in every home. I also believe that even when we talk of the traditional African setting, in a typical village, the woman, just like the man, beyond managing the home front, is also active on the economic front. My mother used to have the cassava and the groundnut section of the farm, while my father is responsible for the yam and some other crops, cocoa, etc. And while the man works hard to assure, looking after the yam section, the woman works even harder, managing the cassava, except that at the end of the season, when, all of that is market. Some families, the man has a natural right to manage the resources accruing from this effort. So it is not as if even at that level, that women are not making a sufficient contribution to the sustenance of the family, beyond looking after the house. I think around the 70s, the world began to appreciate that if we didn't address in a very direct manner the challenge of creating equal opportunity for women, the world can't grow at the pace that is otherwise possible. And we began to see all kinds of movements. We had the Women Conference in Mexico in 1975. And thereafter, there have been several editions, the Beijing Conference, etc., etc. I believe all of that was designed to raise awareness and to put the issue of women in national discourse and even international discourse. And some talk about affirmative action. Some argue that this is unnecessary. But whichever position anyone took, it is clear that the world has come to accept that if, on average, 50% of our population is women, in some countries it's much more than that, if you do not have the right policy mix in place that are targeted to ensure that half of your population is well provided for, then obviously we cannot deliver on full public welfare. So following those campaigns in the 70s through to the 80s, it is clear that by the 1990s, we began to see women occupying very important positions of leadership in the public sector, in business, and in several other sectors. And of course, the renewed focus on the girl-child education. Some progress that have been made in terms of women's life expectancy and improvement in access to women in terms of employment in the formal sector And of course, in many countries, the legal regime were reviewed such as to, recognize property rights, because there were countries where I'm told women could not even own a house. They were not entitled to property. I think some of those actions have led, to some extent, to make a difference in terms of opportunities that are available to women. Such that in the 1990s, we had about 30 women who were either president or prime ministers in different countries. By 2010, about 26 countries had attained 30% representation of women in government, in political office. And you had about 70 female presidents and prime ministers around the world just now. In fact, by 2010, between 2010 and mid-2012, you had about 20 women who were serving either as presidents or as prime ministers in different countries. About 50 women are known to have received the Nobel Peace Prize or Nobel Peace Award. So there's no question that things have changed in terms of access, the number of women who are participating, such that if you represent that conference table to be filled, you will find that there are a couple of women, even in our sub-region. We have a woman president now, not too far away, and she's so articulate when she speaks that I wonder what is in the mind of our colleagues who are men, within the West Africa sub-region. In any case, what does leadership mean? What does it entail? For me, I think it's simple. Just the ability to guide, to organize, mobilize, and motivate a group of people to achieve a defined purpose. According to Oxford Advanced Dictionary, it defined, and I quote, the state or a position of being a leader, the ability to be a leader, or the qualities of a good leader should have. An effective leader is someone who motivates a person or a group to accomplish more than they would have otherwise accomplished without that leader's involvement. When I read literature on leadership and they specify things like self-reliance, intelligence, and good communication skill, confidence, integrity and credibility, decisiveness, independence, assertiveness, competence, coordinating abilities, compassion, and ability to influence, motivate, and guide. All these are fine, but sometimes when you problematize them, they are not so straightforward. A lot of value judgment is involved, and what is straightforward to one person may not be quite so to another. And sometimes people complain that people are too self-independent. They don't listen. They are so opinionated. So as much as we like to push these things, we also need to bear in mind the fact that they can also be counterproductive. It all depends on the setting and who is doing the evaluation. What are the specific impediments to women's progress in leadership role? Though there have been improvement in gender inequality, women's leadership experience remains marginalized. Majority of leaders and those who hold public office are still men, with women occupying only 20.4% of the political position worldwide as of today. Why then do women continue to lag in the leadership race? Some people have talked about glass ceiling. This is like the visible hand that prevents women rising to leadership position or from rising to the upper rung of the corporate ladder, regardless of their qualifications or achievements. The need to balance home and official responsibilities is a major constraint on women's earning, productivity, and accumulation of human capital. The relatively low investment in girls' education, I believe, significantly reduces a country's economic output. Male perception as leaders, the perception of men as leaders and head of the family is still quite prevalent. Women are still often viewed as less effective leaders. In politics, for instance, most political parties are rather slow to respond to women's interests. I'm sure you wonder, around the country we have, I don't know now, given the fact that some have been deregistered, we have more than 40 political parties. Virtually all of them, including those who are owned by a family. None of them seems to have a national woman chairman. And it's difficult because, as you can see, even in their 80s, they are not ready to go. So when will they give women a chance? So this is a problem that is not necessarily peculiar to Nigeria. I had conversation with some women activists in Germany when I was at the NLC, and I shared our experiences in Nigeria. The part of the problem is that men would rather fix meetings at 10 midnight, 10 p.m., 12 midnight, etc. And for most housewives, it is very difficult to tell your husband that you are going for a meeting at 12 midnight, and then you come back home at 3 a.m. and invite him to open the door for you. And because most politicians smoke a lot, try to remain awake. So I imagine if the poor woman sat with someone or some persons who are into smoking, by the time she gets home, the husband might be wondering what has happened to her. So I guess these are part of the issue. But the German lady told me that the Germans may not hold meetings at 12 midnight, but rather they fix the meeting at 7 o'clock, just the time that the average German family is supposed to have a family dinner with the husband and the kids. And to tell your husband and your kids that you're going for a meeting, and therefore that you will be part of the family dinner in a typical Western setting, that can be a huge challenge. And you have to do that time and time again. It could lead to some other consequences. So the result is that for those who are not ready to gamble, but it is normal for the man to tell the wife that I'm going for a meeting. You can sit with the kids and have your meal. Actually, there will be provision for dinner and snack where I'm going to. That seems to be readily acceptable, but it can't be the other way around. The woman can ask the man, you stay, let me go and attend that meeting. When we look at the statistics, it's clear that some progress have been made with regards to girl-child education. But increases in women's educational attainment relative to men have not really translated into gender equality in earnings. We still have a lot of gap in earnings between men and women in many countries. We still have problem of women representation in politics is still a huge challenge in many countries. Women remain vastly underrepresented at all levels of government, with limited power to influence decision-making, and there is also little investment in women's campaigns. Women continue to have less access than men to a range of productive resources, including education, healthcare, land, decent work, information, financial resources, etc. But some people might even ask the question, why is it important that women take up leadership role? What is wrong? The men are not complaining that they are overburdened. They are ready to continue to lead. So, and the world is working and working fine. So what is the problem? Why don't we leave things as they are? As they say, if it's not broken, don't mend it. So I put the question, why should women take up leadership roles? Women leaders have come to represent new types of leadership that indicate greater effectiveness than leadership of the past. Women leadership styles have been shown to be more transformational, participative, and inclusive than the leadership style of their male counterpart. And I think no one will fault this woman who was usually reported as the only man in the British Parliament, Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, who argued, and I quote, "If you want anything said, ask a woman. If you want anything done, ask a woman." And I think you will agree that she was in a position to say that, because in the history of British politics, most people will argue that in modern history, Margaret Thatcher made so much difference and caused so much fundamental changes, not only in Britain, but also around the world. The whole thing about privatization, downsizing government, reinforcing the role of the market in resource allocation. Margaret Thatcher, whether we like it or not, was the key driver behind this, and she had a boyfriend in Washington, Ronald Reagan, who together, I'm sure they did a lot to fundamentally change the way in which the world works. And I do not think things can return, the world cannot be the same again. You might agree or disagree, but they've caused a lot of changes to take place around the world. Privatization, liberalization, removing restrictions in trade, returning to classical economic logic, the trickle-down theory, all of that. Margaret Thatcher ruthlessly pursued those policies, such that by the time she left office, she had changed not just Britain, she had changed the way in which the world worked, or some might say the way in which it does not work, depending on whether you are benefiting or not. But what also emerged from Margaret Thatcher's leadership as Prime Minister is that whereas she succeeded in achieving so much, she was not necessarily a believer in the politics of affirmative action. She believed that women should struggle just like men and find their place. They shouldn't get something out of pity, they should earn it out of struggle. But perhaps because of her own life experience, she didn't understand that in some countries, you needed affirmative action to create that space for women to drive changes and to bring about a more fair, gender-friendly environment. And at the end of her tenure, there were studies that shows clearly that as much as it did burn for Britain, however, British women's share of national income dropped substantially under Margaret Thatcher. Because as she pursued the logic of the market, and the market is driven by the logic of survival of the fittest, and women not being the most particularly fit in relative to men, they saw their share of income dropping to the advantage of the men. But just to say that, sometimes when we focus on women, we must also ask the question, at the end, who is therefore getting what? Are the ordinary women then better off or not? The point I'm trying to make is that we mustn't discuss these issues as if leadership is value-free. Leadership is value-driven. The leader determines who gets what and at whose cost. So if you just pursue efficiency in a ruthless manner without asking the question, who benefits as a result of a more efficient government? If we create more prosperity, who is getting what? Sometimes you need a combination of tools, not just to have an efficient system, but also to ensure that the tools of distribution are such that everybody benefits, taking gender issues into account. It is clear to me that in Nigeria we still have a lot to do to create the right environment for women to be able to compete fairly in in various areas. Our official population suggests, whether we agree or not, many believe our population is a very crude estimate, but at least it's about 50-50. Officially, women are slightly more than men. And it is clear that for all of us who are lamenting the gap between our potentials as a nation and where we are on the Human Welfare Index, the gross mismanagement of our national resources, the leadership crisis in various areas, there is no question that the men can't claim that they've done their best for our great nation. And therefore, there is no basis for arrogance on the part of the men. Every Nigerian you ask agree that there is need for change of leadership. There is need for change of attitude. If that is the so, that would be an argument for change of political leadership from men to women, because the men haven't fixed it. Who knows? Maybe we need a Nigerian woman to do what the Nigerian men have simply been unable to do, whether in the past or even in the present. But when you look at the level of representation, because if we don't get the political leadership right, as we have seen, it has direct impact on all other sectors of society. If the political policies are wrong, if the leadership is not doing the right thing, your own private business, my own private business is affected. If we don't manage our resources prudently, we will not be able to make the right level of investment in education. And so the chance of the girl child to have access to quality education could be jeopardized. And yet, we look around the country since 1999, under the current democracy, we haven't yet seen a woman president, not even a woman vice president. And the last time a woman applied on the platform of one of the political parties, I'm told she got 1/1, which means that all the women who were in that convention, even as they support the campaign for more access to women, and they will talk about 30%, the Beijing recommendation and all of that, when they had the opportunity to vote to nominate a woman, they choose to nominate a man. But just to say that in the real world, these issues are far more complex than we readily appreciate. While I was in the NLC, I found that the National Association of Nigerian Nurses and Midwives is one of the unions in which you have, whose members are about 95% women. And yet, when they go for their convention, our union elections are very, very transparent. There's no toggery, you don't need money, all you need is to persuade. And yet, these women nurses, in full freedom, will prefer to elect a man to lead them. And when I ask them, why electing a man? They have their own reasons why they do that. So sometimes it is not really that men discriminate. I think there's something about the environment, something about our traditions, something about some of our assumptions, etc., some of our primordial sentiments. Otherwise, it is still difficult for me to understand why women, 100 women assembled in a place. Out of the 100, you have maybe 4 men, and they choose to elect one of those 4 to lead them. And as they live there, they go to another conference, and they will talk about the need to give women a chance. These are serious issues. But if you look at our history, Nigerian women has played very, very important role in the struggle both before independence, in terms of militant mobilizing, organizing, biting the bullets. Women have played very, very important role in our political history. But they have not attracted the same level of visibility at the level of former political leadership. I believe every woman, or most women, are proud of the fact that there are a couple of Nigerian women who are clearly making a difference. People readily remember women like Dora Akuyili, of course, the present coordinating minister, Ezekwelesi. You have the petroleum minister, the minister of aviation. It's quite a number. And in business, of course, you know it better. People like Florisho Alakija, Bola Shagaya, Bola Adesola, quite a number. But when we talk of leadership, for me, it goes beyond a man or a woman rising to a level and being the boss. That is probably important in terms of the politics of gender. But for me, even more important is what is changing as a result of that. If we have a woman as finance minister and a coordinating minister of the economy, very good for the politics of gender. But we must ask the question, is the Nigerian economy better for it? If yes, that is why we want more women. If not, it means we need to rethink again. I don't have the answer. I just want you to know that we must go beyond the gender of the driver to look at the way in which he's driving the vehicle. Because if he drives the vehicle roughly such as to have an accident, other women passengers, so we need to go beyond who occupies what. The number seems to be increasing. Still not good enough. We must ask the question, as a result of the increases in the numbers, are we all generally in better hands? This is a question you will discuss in your, during the tea time. I'm not going to discuss it here because I am not ready to look for trouble this morning. But what you will agree, however, is that generally, many will argue that the courage that goes into stealing public funds, I believe a lot of courage is required for a man, barefaced, to go and take that which belongs to all of us and engage in such conspicuous consumption that suggests that he doesn't just give a damn as to what you think. Many argue that women are generally, they don't have that kind of disposition. But we are only speaking in general terms when we because we no longer can push this argument too far when we look at, decided cases. We can talk of decided cases without fear because we are quoting what we have seen, what the courts are pronounced on. When you remember the story of Oceanic Bank, you will think twice. So even a woman can do that. But it's not that it's different from what is happening. It's just that nobody expected that a woman would do, when men still do such things, they're used to doing it. But when a woman is involved in it, It's raised serious issues about some of our assumptions. But everything said, there is no suggestion that women are angels. I think the issue is that everything considered, women can do a lot better, and they have shown in many areas that there are areas in which they can be more efficient, much more than men. In Edo State, I came with a crazy idea. I call it crazy now because when I look back, I realized that it was a huge risk on my part. I came into government clear that I was not going to allow politicians to dictate what I do. I was going to try and run a government the way it is run in the private sector. Even though I was a labor leader, but I started my union work in the private sector, not in the public sector. I have never worked for government. And I could see that overall, private enterprises are more efficiently managed. There is eye for details, eye for cost. There's, robust check and balances, compared to what we see in the public sector. And I came with that impression that I would try and avoid doing business with politicians. So once I won my case in court, I sat down and called a few friends to help me identify professionals so that we can run an efficient government. And I think I can see one, I call her small girl. It's a small girl because I'm much, much older than her. She, along with a few others, I think Godwin was my co-conspirator. I asked Godwin, let's look for men and women who are professionals. Go to form a government of professionals, even though these professionals don't like to vote. They prefer to watch from television, whether the politicians have started fighting, how many people have they killed, have they rigged the election, if they haven't, when will they announce the rigging and all that. They don't want trouble. But if we are going to run Nigeria efficiently, you need more professionals on board. And so we assembled these people, and one of them is here. I didn't know her from Adam, but listening to her contributions at one forum, I realized that she could help to drive changes in our Ministry of Education. In Edo, our leading industry is education. And quite a number of them like that. When I assembled them and I put the names across to our political party leaders, they told me, comrade, this is not possible. When we have delivered our votes, we have delivered our local government, we have delivered our ward, and then you go and bring people who were not even in Edo to come and run the government, this is not acceptable. And I tried to convince them that for me, the persuasive skill you need include the skill of lying. Because, I'm sorry I like to be blunt. The truth is, politicians lie too much. And I'm sure when you read newspapers, you will notice it. They will say what in the morning, and if you dare tell them the following day about what they said yesterday, they will want to take you to court. I argue that, for me, the skill we need to run an efficient system is not exactly the same skill you need to manipulate the electoral consciousness and to get them to vote one way or the other. Those skills are important because that is what we need in politics, to get the people to leave their home, to be convinced that it is worth their while, to go and queue for a couple of hours in order to cast a vote. You need to manipulate the way they think to think that for them to agree that it is worth their time. That's a very important skill. But unfortunately, once governments have been formed, the skill you need to run that government efficiently are totally different. And so there is that tension between who can win the vote and who can run the government. And my argument was that, okay, having won the vote, we have made sets of promises as to what the government will do. And for us to be able to do those things, we will need skills. And so we assembled some professionals. But talking about women, and I wish she's not here because I'm going to say things that she might be looking for a lawyer just before I get to the airport. She came into the state, you know, for those of you who are familiar, if you read papers all the time, Edo State had become notorious as a miracle state. That is where you can pass your WAEC, your NECO, you know, you get 8 credits or 8 A's, you know, if you join the right miracle center. And these miracle centers are not presided over by church pastors. They are a different type. And I found that we were doing much better in this area, much more than our neighboring state. Delta could not compete in that particular aspect of crime. Anambra, Imo, those people who are known for other things, in this business, they consider space to Edo. People were coming from Ondo State, from Ekiti State. So we're actually a center of excellence. You know. And we knew that this is not right, this is not sustainable, and we know that this was destroying our system. Because when people believe that they can make A's without working, without reading, why would they read? Although part of the problem was that the public sector, the public school system had been destroyed. And so the only way to pass examination, to be honest, is through miracles. If you are not ready to go through those miraculous process, then you have to stay at home. But this lady came on board, and I said to her, we need to reform the educational sector. I know next to nothing about, I am not an educationist, but I can provide, and I will provide, the political leadership required to drive those changes. And we will start by rebuilding schools, bring them to up to certain standard, such that they will be far more attractive than some of the mushroom private schools, so that the child of the poor can have access to quality public schools. But building beautiful schools and equipping them and even recruiting qualified teachers is important. But it is not enough to bring about the disappearance of those miracle centers. There were other policy reforms we needed to carry out. And because the sector has been detained by a mafia, presided over by some well-tested godfathers and godmothers, you needed a fairly mad person to be able to drive those changes. And if you are familiar, and I don't want this to be recorded, with, you know, where we're coming from in Edo State, these social organizations, I call them, I'll put it that way, you know, they are very strong. Every other person seems to belong to one organization or the other. That is the way I will describe them for the purpose of this discourse, because otherwise it could cost me the next election. And when a member of this club is involved in something, you can do nothing about it. And the result is that the system completely collapsed. Now, this lady was deployed to the educational sector. And she chased these miracle people, not only out of town, chased them into the bush and set fire on the bush. You know? I haven't called you. And today, Edo State is better for it. All those reforms that were carried out, and I can confess that she was, when she had to return to Unilag to take up her professorial seat, we have to replace her with a man. And everybody agree that these have not been the same. Because the level of courage she's shown, her successor couldn't. She couldn't because she couldn't deal with those vested interests. He was intimidated to submission where the woman stood her feet and conquered those guys. If you read newspapers, you will find that I have been reported as having had to order the dismissal of many teachers and the dismissals of many zonal education inspectors and chief education inspectors. Those were the guys who completely succeeded in detaining the system, kidnapped the entire system after she left. And so I saw that this thing you call courage has nothing to do with gender. There are coward wearing trousers, and there are generals in skirt when it comes to doing what is right. And so today, if we talk about the need for, I do not know about any other quality of leadership, but the most important one, or as Caro taught us in other Vision 2010, one of the most critical success factor. She used to talk about 7 or 8 or 10 critical success factors. But the one most critical success factor of leadership is courage. And it is more so in a primitive environment such as ours. The courage to call a thief and to deal with the thief. You have seen a level 40 officer complaining that he took only 23 billion. And he's able to escape. And nobody have the courage to bring him to justice. You know, the subsidy boys. I came here, I believe this hall, to talk about my own frustration, how the subsidy thing has become a shield for very lazy thieves, and how otherwise reputable audit firms have become part of this national fraud. Now you know better. So if you ask me, why are we where we are? All of us need to demonstrate some level of courage to deal with what is wrong and to uphold what is right. And women are known to have such courage. I talked about Margaret Thatcher earlier. I didn't like her, I should readily appreciate. I didn't like her for 2 reasons. First is because I'm a black person. And Margaret Thatcher was not, she didn't quite appreciate colored people. In fact, she talks about Britain being swamped by people of color. And being a colored man, although I thought white is also a color, you don't expect me to have, much love for people who doesn't like people of my color. The second is that she had a tough battle with the British trade unions, including the most militant of them, the miners, other actor Skagel. And that woman, that British Prime Minister, dealt with my people. The military union leaders, those who have dealt with all sorts of governments of different colors, Margaret Thatcher succeeded in reordering the way in which unions operate in Britain, fought all the strikers, if you like, to submission. So if you talk of courage, whether courage to do good or to do bad, but courage to drive changes, to do what you believe in, women are known to have a lot of that. And today, Nigeria needs courage in various areas. We need courage to deal with those who are undermining our collective welfare. We need courage to look at our leaders in the eye and tell them that we don't deserve them. And we need courage to mobilize, to resist those things that are happening around us that are undermining our future and mortgaging the future of our children. I believe women have a lot of that. When I was in the NLC, when we organized those strikes, unknown to many, although the headlines were always on me, but actually a lot of the silent mobilizers going door to door, pushing the message across, and when we are debating before those decisions are taken, there are some who are afraid of how the state will respond. We had young men, we had young women in the system who will say, we will dare the police. But of course, at the end, when the decision is taken, I chest out, and I'm the one that you see. But just to say that even in the politics of mobilizing against oppression, against repression, against mismanagement of our common will, historically, the Nigerian woman has played her part, and this is very well documented in our history. The second is having eye for details. If you have no time for those little issues, a lot will slip under your hand. I believe it is, again, well documented that women, by their very nature, generally, there could be few exemptions, generally have eye for details. And that, for me, is also one of the most important attributes of good leadership. Nancy Reagan was quoted as saying, "A woman is like a tea bag." I'm not sure whether this is complimentary or not, but that is what she said. A woman is like a tea bag. You cannot tell how strong she is until you put her in a hot water. What you then do with the water thereafter, she didn't quite say. In the ACN, this is not a political gathering, but for me, it is important that I learn from women in ACN when I joined ACN. We have a very popular slogan: no woman, no nation. Woman speak, woman understand. You train a woman, you train a nation. Then the men added something. Say no woman, no nation. Then the men say no man, no miliki. But what I found interesting in this is that these women activists, wherever we go on the campaign trail, they are there. But once the campaigns are over, on election day, you will find it's just that we are very poor in gathering statistics. I believe that for every 100 vote cast, you will find that probably 65 of those votes are women votes. Because women will have the patience to queue, whether in the rural or urban areas, and they will not be distracted. Even if it is raining, they will sit down there quietly to vote. So we have more women voters than men in both the urban and rural areas. And yet, after the election, when it is time for appointment, unfortunately, the system does not favor women. Right now, I'm dealing with that challenge. I ask our party leaders to nominate 5 persons per local government, 2 of which must be women. In most cases, they had difficulties, even comply with that on paper. And when we insist that that was a condition they must fulfill, then they went about nominating people who they know are not appointable, either by reasons of their age or by reasons of the fact that they are not so competent. A 68-year-old woman was nominated. There's nothing wrong with 68. After all, they say a woman is like wine. The older, the better. It is just that they know that in truth, that woman cannot stand the rigor. My pace of work, there's no way that woman can cope. Yet in that local government, they have young graduates, they have young professionals in various fields, but they will tell you, but they are not our members. So if they are not our members and we won 80/18, it is safe to assume that they most probably voted for us. So if they voted for us, even if they didn't vote for us, but they can help us deliver on the promises we have made to the electorate. So, just to avoid the embarrassment of having a cabinet without sufficient number of women, talking of dictatorship, I have to call them to say, look, you must go and find a woman in your local government to nominate. If you don't, I will look for one. And yesterday, I did one like that. I had to look for a woman, a medical doctor to appoint as the commissioner for health. And I didn't have to tell my party people because we gave them the opportunity and they didn't nominate one. So we're going to have a situation in which, we have an all-male cabinet. Now, women from outside will wonder, why would Comrade, while he was in the NLC, he talked about gender equality, and we expect that he's one of the progressive governors. Now he's from a cabinet, we have only 1 or 2 women there. That is part of the problem. So I have to work hard to see how, we have to abandon the democratic process and unilaterally go in, even if through dictatorship, say, in this your local government, this is the person I will appoint. So you still have a lot to do in terms of mobilizing. And for political leadership, I think your association should encourage women, not the ones that use it to take public funds, these jamboree and all that. But, if you have this kind of outing, not only in Lagos, sometimes take it to some other states, and then encourage women to go into this thing called politics. Some say it is too dirty, but there's no one who knows better how to keep a home clean than women. In a typical village, they know more than men how to use the broom. Not because I'm ACN, but the broom has always been a ready tool. Because if we do not, what there happen is that the only women in politics, in most places, if you carry out some investigation, you will find, I'm not sure I should say this, but if you allow me, you will find that there are women, maybe they've divorced, they are not so educated, but they have some fire in them, and so they are able to do a little bit of toggery, and so, things like that. And because these are the ones who are active, and they are the ones who can stand in the village square and talk to fellow women, mobilize them and share, distribute rice and maize and corn and things like that. Unfortunately, these ones cannot be appointed as commissioners, as directors. So, until that day when women resolve, side by side with men, to compete and to join political parties, this inequality is most likely going to continue. And you cannot plead with the men to give you a chance because nobody abandons what is good for him. So when I was in the unions, I tell workers, don't say management is being unfair. Business is not driven by the politics of fairness. Whatever is good, Godwin may not agree with this. Recent time, they talk about corporate social responsibility. That is because they no longer can justify the level of greed, so they begin to say, no, we also care socially. But before you appropriate for corporate social responsibility, you would have done a lot of accumulation that what is strictly done for corporate social responsibility is actually like, spraying a perfume in a big hall and saying now everybody has, had a touch. I feel women need to get out more. And additionally, we need to clean up the political process because if we continue with this primitive approach in which, like one politician in Ibadan, later Didibu was reported as saying to a young man who came from University of Ibadan to ask for his support to contest for an office. And Adedibu was a president saying to the young man, "Where you bring your CV, it's okay, don't worry about the CV. I know you are qualified. You're coming from university, yeah, you are good. But just a question, are you able to carry a handgun in one hand, the other hand, a ballot box, and you are running and you are firing to scare away these opposition people?" And the professor said, "No, you can't do that." I said, "Then you have to wait. When those who can do that have contested the election and won, they can appoint you as their advisor." Now, for me, what this means for you is that you must join in the national effort to create conditions that will make it impossible for anybody to rig election in Nigeria. You must participate actively in the campaign for free and fair election. If it is a game of survival of the fittest, in terms of those who have the capacity to kill, to cheat, then most decent women are unlikely to be attracted to politics. But this is not a difficult thing. If our people in Liberia can organize a relatively free and fair election, the Ghanaians have organized a relatively free and fair election. Well, we are waiting to hear what is happening in Kenya. I don't know as of this morning what the situation is. As of last night, I hear it was a close race. You know, in Nigeria, you never have close race. It's always landslide. Because given our diversity, landslide suggests ab initio that there wasn't a level playing field. And because we have all seen that our individual accomplishments can be undermined if we have irresponsible national, state, and local government political leadership, we all must find time to be engaged at that level. If we do not, all the current indicators are worrisome. We are making more money and we are getting poorer. And you look at the official Human Welfare Index, the more they seem to change, the more they remain the same. And I believe that when we attain a level in which the vote counts, and those who wield political power at all levels recognize that they are holding the office at the pleasure of the electorate, and the electorate have the power of sanction and reward, then we will have an accountable government. If the vote don't count, no amount of moral rearmament or sermonizing will cause the kind of changes we require for our country to find its feet and to compete in the global arena. And as we have seen, when things fail, when nation fails, everybody suffers, but women suffer more. I was watching BBC News last night, and I saw refugees who are leaving Syria to neighboring countries. You will mostly see women and little kids struggling. And no matter how that tells you when things fail, women bears the burden. And therefore, you have a duty beyond your individual accomplishment. You know, on a gathering like this, to ask the question, are you satisfied with the way things are going in your local government? Are you satisfied? Are you happy with the way in which your state government is being managed? Are you satisfied with the way in which our nation is being managed? If yes, continue to offer support. If no, join the forces of change. Because to be honest, you know, a nation is like a family house. Even if you think that your own particular bedroom is well ordered, if there is fire in the house, the better ordered your bedroom is, the more the pain of the losses that will result. from a crisis. I think, therefore, that as women who are privileged, part of the elite, you have a duty to use your platform to join forces with others, particularly other civil society groups, and continue to insist that the power of the people to interrogate their leaders must be defended, and that government must ensure that resources are efficiently managed in a way that will make a difference in the quality of life of our people. When rogues are exposed and there is an attempt to cover up, as women you must shout that those resources that are being stolen are not government resources. Government does not have resources. You know, it's only in Nigeria we talk about government money. Government doesn't have money. Government is just a treasury that appropriate through taxes and other levies and sources, appropriate the common will to manage in good faith on behalf of all of us. So if we recognize that the pension money is our money, if police cannot find Maina, we'll tell them they should go and find him. Because, you know, those stories are destroying the fabric of our society. A young man who is struggling to buy bread to go to school reads that somebody took so much money from police pension. And then he hears that the police that can arrest somebody who stole a goat. In Edo State, a poor man was sentenced to 5 years in prison by a magistrate for allegedly stealing a roasted rabbit. 5 years in jail. And the magistrate said he will apply the laws in full. When the children of that guy hears that a man who took several billions of naira is missing, you know, so I ask us to recognize that I believe personally that our individual accomplishment will come to nothing if the Nigeria project fails. And therefore, we must find enough time to engage, to harass, to intimidate, and to interrogate all of us who wield power on behalf of our people, whether they are men or women. I want to conclude by apologizing that, as you can see, this is not an area in which I am particularly skilled. But I also felt that it will not be right. And as I confessed earlier, I do not have the courage to say no to Ifeko. First, as a sister, but also as an in-law. And so I had to come, and I said, if I cannot enlighten you more, at least I can confuse you. Now, in the course of trying to overcome and discuss the confusion, we may all become more enlightened. So if this is not my best speech, I have explained why it is so. But let me say that, like you, I am convinced that Nigeria must review the legal regime, the legal environment, put in place the right policies to ensure that the girl child has access to quality education, and that we create an economic environment that will create jobs for our people, and that at the level of leadership, whether in business, in politics, in public office, that we recognize that a nation that oppresses more than 50% of its population cannot possibly succeed. And because our population is more than 50% women, it is not only the right thing to do, it is the smartest thing to do, that we recognize women as a special group that deserves special focus in our collective national interest. Thank you.
I think I can speak on behalf of all of us here. The governor is saying that this is not his best speech. He's been slow, He's been deliberate. He has touched every fabric in our system. He has told you what you need to do. Be courageous, come out, make a difference, make the change. We should not sit back in our comfort zones and believe the change will happen. This is what Wimbies is talking about. And no other person has put it to us very well this morning. Taking time to start and to conclude this way, I hope it will resonate in your mind and you will take a decisive action from today to make that difference. To be courageous, to be honest, and come out and make the difference. I'll hand over now to Kadari.
Yes, and I think he does deserve another round of applause. Thank you very much. Now, ideally, what I would have loved to do was to summarize what His Excellency said, but because he's in a hurry, and I'm trying to get as many people engaged in this discussion as possible, I'm going to skip that part of it and just open the floor straight away. So if you have questions, comments, because we're so many, I'm also going to please ask you to keep it short and succinct and to the point. And there are mics on the floor, so please raise your hand, and then I will point you out. Please say your name, your organization, and then make your comment or your question. A minute, not more than a minute, please. Let's start from this corner. I think there's someone, yeah, up there in black glasses. Thank you.
Good afternoon, sir, Your Excellency. Good afternoon, Mrs. Assis. You know, this meeting is actually for me. And I just want to thank you, Governor, for all that you have said. Talking of, I'm so sorry, I'm going to talk about politics because that is actually my turf. You said we should come out.
Who are you, please?
Oh, sorry. My name is Tina Ajayi. I'm into interiors, and I'm also into politics. Okay. I remember, the question I want to ask is, I remember trying to join ACN a couple of years back, and I didn't have, the experience was very bad. Talking about having meetings in the midnight and all that and all that. But recently, I remember I also went back, and I said in my neighborhood, Surulere, especially, you know, collating people to vote for ACN to make sure that we have a good government and all that and all that. And I remember I was also told to go back to my roots, which is in Edo State, Uromi. I'm from Uromi, Ni Okoje. My name is, Ni Okoje. So I went back to Uromi, and I remember going back to my big uncles. I even went to the Onoje and all that. And I remember, and I said to them, listen, I'm interested in women and children. That is what drives me. That's the passion I have. And you know, they told me something. They said, no, I'm too cool for all that. I should go back to Lagos. That I should go back to Lagos and go back to ACN. And I went back to Lagos and I went back to ACN. I'm married to a Yoruba man. And I was told that because I'm married to a Yoruba man, I'm not fully a Yoruba woman. Now the question is, for goodness sake, I know that the governor knows that in Nigeria, for you to move now, you need to have a godmother or a godfather. But I said to myself, I don't need that. I have a voice. And I have a passion. All I ask is, the question now is, how? You said platform. What platform? This is Winbiz, and that's why I'm stepping out. Thank you.
And thank you. And Excellency, Excellency, as you consider that question, maybe I could also ask, because I know ACN has a gender policy. My understanding is that there's a certain percentage of national positions and also state and local positions that are supposed to be reserved for women, but for some reason that isn't being implemented. So maybe you could tackle the issue she's raised as well as that altogether. A few more questions, please, so that he has a few to get him going. Yes?
Good afternoon, Your Excellency. Good afternoon, all. My name is Ejaita Idiegbe. I work with ADIC Insurance Limited. I have a question for you, Your Excellency. You mentioned a magistrate in Edo State has sentenced a man to 5 years for theft of roasted rabbit. My question is, did that occur during your tenure? And if yes, what did you do to address it? Thanks.
Good question. Up front here, let's get someone in the front.
Good morning, Your Excellencies. Wimbys, I'd like to thank you very much for this opportunity. Sir, I notice, not just me, I'm sure most women here will agree with me. My name is Gloria Idiahi. I work with Precious Biz Link from Taraba State. Now, I'm sure most women here will agree with me that mistakes that are taken ordinarily from men and are seen as mistakes, and then when it comes to the woman, it's been seen as a sign of incompetence. Now, that's one. And then if we talk about giving women opportunities, I know very well that, of course, a governor of a state is like the sole person who has that authority and can take such a decision. Now, if in a state you have the cabinet member, for instance, 30, and we just have 3 or 4 women there, I don't think that is well represented. If you can also use your very good office to advocate for women, not just for labor and the rights of course, if you want to talk about the number of poor persons in this country, I know that a woman will be a huge number out of that. We want to please appeal to you, if you would use your good office to also educate others to help the woman fold move forward. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Maybe you'd like to address some of these questions now. Let's just take a pause to listen to His Excellency.
Well, thank you very much. I think the last one is a little bit problematic. You know, when a man does something wrong, it's seen as a mistake. But for a woman, it will be seen as incompetent. Is that what you said? Yeah, all right. I think it depends on the evaluator. I don't think there is a national attitude to that. There are many who will say, well, you know, it's a woman, so please, you should make allowance for that. There are some who would argue that way, that, okay, she's made a mistake, but, I mean, she's a lady, so don't get too hard, assist. But of course, there are some who, I should say, we say, particularly those who are not quite convinced about the merit of this gender debate and all of that. So I am not sure that there is such a general attitude. What I think you will find common in many situations is that some men who are leaders, particularly those who have a complex, when you have an argument with a woman in the office and she seems to be winning the argument, the man will be like, when I have a wife like you at home, you are coming to lecture me. Now, that for me points to a complex on the part of the man. But it's not only in women issues. I've also seen situations where elderly people, men, who have cause to debate a matter with a younger one, when he thinks he has lost the argument, he takes over by saying, even for my age, you have no respect. Before your mother was born, I'm telling you, this is the way this thing has been. What do you know that you are coming to argue? Now, at that level, the debate has closed. It's now about age. So I think this varies from individual to individual. It won't be right to generalize in that respect. For me, I think the issue of educating people, that is fine. But it's not so much, the truth is that it's not so much that people don't know. If you have been produced by a godfather, and the godfather tells you who you must put in a certain position, how much discretion can you exercise? You know, when I told you that I said to my AC leader, sorry, these are my decisions, not my, I'm going to make this appointment, and I went ahead and effected the appointment, is because I knew, they know also, that I was properly elected and I was not at their mercy. But if I know that they all did some silly things behind the scene, to manipulate, to have me declared, then I cannot ignore them. And unfortunately, those who are, the real electoral rigor are 99% men. That is the truth. The business of manipulating and all that is mostly by men. And so they then corner the office and, But, as I said, in this business, you are not going to appeal to people to abandon a system that favors them. You have to create conditions that will make it impossible for them to sustain that system. There's another lady there who is running our ICT system. She is ruthlessly efficient in dealing with male compensation. Some of these, I just put it that way, just on a lighter note. They go to her and make all kinds of whatever. She says, no, this is it. But she's also assured that I will provide the political backing. That when they dare come to me to say, can you imagine that woman? I say, no, it's not that woman. That is the director. Not that woman. Because when you say that woman, it's already can you imagine that woman? And you have to admit, no, it's not that woman. That is the director. So what is the problem? Because I've been already suggested to you that she is supposed to do what she has done by reason of being a woman. We need sustained effort to get men to purge themselves of inferiority complex. There was a postcard that I love so much. I can't find it now. Someone displayed in his office in UK. He said, evil mad people, mad men, when they sit around a male doctor, female doctor, they are mad. Once they remember that they are men, they're like, who is a doctor to tell us this woman, not this doctor now, because she's a woman, even they as mad people think that they can do better. So I think it's a complex that men have. And they would abandon it until you mobilize to a level that they recognize that they just but reappraise and re-examine their assumptions about who they are relative to what women are. The magistrate, yes, they have ordered my tenure, painfully. But that also points to the fact that, and I have no difficulties in acknowledging the fact that there are so many things we need to change. Yeah, we've got some changes, but we have a lot more to do to create the kind of Edo State that I will be happy with. Now, there is the principle of separation of powers. When a magistrate has abused his office that way, he is not employed by me and I cannot fire him. He's part of the judicial arm. So, if you ever find yourself in a forum where there are judges and lawyers, you can raise this issue. But if I do, I will be seen as interfering with the judiciary.
Don't you have the power as an executive to issue pardons to prisoners?
This is a very dangerous woman. I'm looking for the window to see how I can escape. And I thought I found one. She just went and closed it. I think you made a point. I think the governor has the power of mercy, clemency, or whatever. Godwin, let me give this assignment to Godwin and Yemi Kerry. As we arrive Benin today, remind me so I will call the PAMSEC and see what we can do. And to be honest with you, I have always said that my responsibility is to lament particularly things that we can change. And I think this is probably one of them. They will inform you of what has come out of that. The issue of this problem of the status of a married woman, whether you are to claim your husband's state of origin or your own original state of origin. It's part of those national problems. To start with, the real bigger issue is, why should our right to contest for any office be determined by our state of origin? It would be easier for me to win election in Kaduna State, where I had lived all my life, where I had organized all sorts of people, all sorts of protests. But for political reasons, I was told I have to go to my state of origin. I have no choice where I was born, but I consciously chose where to live. And we celebrate American democracy and other democracies, but we do not borrow the fine parts of those democracies. We are happy as black people that a black man is the president of America. One of you women was even mobilizing money. I'm not going to speak on this, whether the money got there or not, but there was something. That is how much we appreciated President Obama, with a Kenyan father. There is no dispute that the father is from Kenya. No dispute whatsoever. Ironically, if Obama was to contest election in Kenya, whether he would be eligible to contest by reasons of the fact that the mother is an American, would be a big issue. So I think the real issue, and this is more so for women, is that you must support, particularly now that they're talking about constitutional amendment, this concept of indigenship. We should have it completely abolished in our public discourse and in the Constitution. If that is removed, you are entitled to contest election where you reside. If residence rather than indigenship is the basis, then the issue of whether your husband is from Lagos or you are from Edo will become irrelevant. I think that is the real solution. But right now, if they wanted to help you in Uromi, they would have done so. Because they've done it for some other persons. When Senator Daisy Dajuma decided to contest election, she's married to General Dajuma from, I believe, Taraba State. She came back to Edo State, contested election in the largest senatorial district, and she was elected a senator. So they could have as well accepted you to contest election in Uromi if they wanted to. But the issue of godfatherism and who is introducing you, and if you are as forceful, if you sound as forceful as you sounded here, then you are not likely to be the kind of people who will obey godfathers. And you'll be asked to return to your husband's place. And I guess that's what they did. So, but if you feel strong about it, and I feel you should, then you can come, because the two figures you mentioned, there are two forces now in Edo State, the past and the present.
Governor, you are offering to become a godfather.
No, I am a grandfather, not a godfather. So you can come back, let's talk. I believe there is space for you in our own, So I think basically this is it. There will always be excuse when people want to make excuses. But the truth of the matter is, even in Lagos, the commissioner for, if I'm right, the commissioner for economic planning is an Igbo man. And Governor Fashola appointed him as such. And I also know the other Governor Asiwaju Tinubu, a couple of persons from Lagos State have been elected, and so on and so forth. So, but maybe in your own case, you know, when we don't want to do something, we'll find excuses.
Okay, so unfortunately, the governor has to dash off, so we've got only 10 more minutes. I won't be able to take all your questions, but I'll take maybe another 4. Okay, go on.
My name is Ronke Onodeko. Your Excellency, first I'd like to thank you for taking the challenge of facing this amount of women this morning. I became an indigenous citizen of Edo State in 1992 by purchasing an arable land that was formerly known as Agbede Warake Farms, and is now Delta Farms Limited. And we have started an investment project to the tune of 2.5 billion naira in the Esako and Owan local government areas, and we're rolling out right now as I speak. At the Edo Agric Business Forum in Benin last year in April, you encouraged us who had investments in Edo State to get back on track and start doing things. And you encouraged us women to step out. And just in the same vein, you made some promises to us about some incentives you're going to give and some assistance you're going to give. And we've had other support as well from people like the Central Bank and the Minister of Agric. As a female entrepreneur, we need your support and we need your partnership. We need direct access to you, and we need incentives and your visible support to our initiatives as we make the difference to build the state economy without intimidation, without harassment, or prejudice to our gender, our religion, our age, or where we come from in the country, or our political affiliation. My questions to you are, how can you facilitate access to you, especially concerning constraints we're having with our investment activities in the state? What policies do you have specifically for women entrepreneurs in agriculture in Edo State? And how do you plan to ensure that the delivery on the policies and incentives you have put in place are actualized? And lastly, how does Edo State plan to complement the support coming from the Central Bank and the Ministry of Agric? Thank you very much, sir.
Excellency, it sounds like she wants you to deliver another lecture. Yes, and because we're going to actually do a presentation after this, unfortunately, that is the last question I can take. I'm so sorry.
Go ahead. Okay, thank you. Well, the issue of access, talk to one Mr. Godwin Obaseki. Stand up. Thank you. You see, he obeyed orders from women. You ordered him to stand up, and he did. But he is the chairman of our economic team, and we both agree that in this, my second and last term, we'll have to focus more on the economy, and the agri sector is one of the areas we are seriously looking at. Yes, we did make promises about support, but you have to come out with doable projects and tell us precisely how we can come in to lend our support, recognizing the fact that a private business is a private business. Our basic responsibilities are clear to me. First, to sustain our investment in infrastructure, including access roads, so that you can evacuate your farm produce, to try and extend electricity, so that should you need power, and obviously those working around there will want power, to provide water so that people working around the farm will have water to drink, and any other thing, including health sector, etc. Provide good schools so that the issue of where will my children go to school if I go to Warake, all of those are being addressed. As for access to me, I think I am the most accessible because my IV to this place was first conveyed orally by my sister, and I accepted before the formality. Yemi, give her our phone number. She give my phone number. Just send me a text.
Thank you very much, Excellency.
Hello, ladies. I know we want to stay a bit longer, but as we said, the governor has to leave. And so it's with great pleasure that I stand here today as the chairperson of the Lecture Series Committee, essentially because the guest speaker is the governor of my own very state. I'm a full-blooded Bini girl, and I'm very proud of it too. So on behalf of the chairman, or the chair lady, and the Executive Council and the Board of Trustees, we want to say a very big thank you. Well, we first of all say thank you to all the ladies and the few gentlemen that are here today. We say thank you to all our sponsors, Consolidated Discounts Limited, and the media. And our lecture series planning committee members, we have Bolanle Oste-Peters, Buki George, and Bumi Abodering. Stand up quickly. The governor has to leave. It's not easy to plan this kind of seminar, so we want to say a very big thank you to them. We thank the Lagos State Governor Representative, Mrs. Risikat Akiyode. We say thank you for coming today. Finally, our very own Governor Adams Oshiomhole. I invite Mrs. Bola Adeshola, and Ifweko is here also, to join me in presenting this to you. So you remember us when you are in your office in Benin. I say, these women that I came to meet today, every one of them we know and I like. So thank you so much, sir, for coming. But we'll just do a presentation that we can all shut down. Thank you, ladies. Have a very good afternoon. And join us downstairs at the foyer for a bit of a tea break downstairs. And let's network as well. There's no point coming all the way here and not networking. Thank you, everyone. All the executive board members, can you please join us? Executive council members, please join us.